share, and enjoy the ride. I'm Danny, a.k.a. Uncle Coors Lightyear, half co-host of this wonderful experience, and with always is my partner in crime, Travis.
Hello, hello.
During our inaugural episode 1 of Records or Checkers, we're going to go over a few things on the show. We're going to touch on last week's recap of the Pennzoil 400 in Las Vegas. We're going to move forward into some betting, outlooks of the odds, etc. for the Wireless Straight Talk 400. And, and we're also going to talk about a little more to do with Homestead. So, kick back, enjoy the ride. Records or Checkers.
Records or Checkers, baby. Hell yeah, welcome in, everybody. Thank you, Danny, for the intro, or Uncle Coors Lightyear, as we like to call him. I just wanted to say hello to everybody. I'm Travis, fairly new NASCAR fan. Got into the sport a couple years ago when I attended my first race. It was the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I think it was 2 years ago now. With yours truly and the other handsome gentleman on screen there. Oh, no, you didn't go to that race, actually. It was with some other family members. But regardless, you've been there before. You know what it's like in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
I was hooked from that first lap of practice, pretty much. The smell of race gas, just the thundering sound of them going around. It just doesn't do it any justice going or watching it on TV versus going to the track. So that's when I really fell in love.
Agreed. Yeah, the TV doesn't do the sport justice. I mean, yeah, it's fun to watch on TV, but to really become a fan, I mean, it makes the non-believer a believer when you step into a racetrack in person, especially for the first time. I've been a fan for a steady 10 years, and prior to that, I was not a fan. I was one of those guys that kind of said, yeah, it's a bunch of cars going left. Wasn't really my thing, and then I started getting some friends that kind of got me into watching it, and then it was that first race that I went to in Vegas myself that really set me on a downward NASCAR spiral.
Yeah.
And ever since, it's been a 9-month sport affair that I have. I mean, I watch a lot of football, but I watch every NASCAR race. Those are my two sports I follow the most.
Yeah.
And it is definitely one of my favorites. As you can see, I've got a 9 imprinted on my forehead. Chase Elliott's my boy. He's the guy I put my money on every week. He's the guy I cheer for. He's the guy I get pissed off if he gets wrecked.
It's been a rough couple years.
It's been a rough couple years for my boy ever since he won a championship. So
at least you got that on your belt.
That's right.
At least you got that on you.
Can only get so far being America's favorite driver,
That's true. That's true. And being so young, too.
Right.
So, yeah, but, we're here going to do some weekly shows. Like Danny said, we want to recap what happened last week, go over what's happening this week. I'm big on the betting. I don't put a ton of money on this. This is just for fun. Obviously, anything we go over isn't going to be financial advice because we're not doing so hot over here. But it is fun. It's fun to have, a little money on the race. Gives you something else to kind of to root for, especially from what I found is like, okay, this track isn't one of your driver's best tracks, right? Probably just hoping to squeak in some stage points or a top 10 finish, right?
Right.
It's fun to put some money on a different driver then, have a dog in the race, I guess, is the way I like to look at it. But yeah. So yeah, that's us. We'll hope you'll like, subscribe, join up, listen to the show, and get involved, ask us some questions. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. So we'll move on to last week's recap. Last week we had Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
Pennzoil 400.
Obviously my favorite track because it's the only one I've been to. So last week was it was definitely a good Vegas race. Quite a bit of action. The the Josh Berry thing was huge.
Yeah.
Taken down first out of nowhere seemingly. He ran a pretty good race. He was obviously he ran a great race, but throughout the first few stages, I felt like he was just kind of lingering there, top 10ish the whole time, but never really making a move. I don't know if that was by design or if he didn't have the car for it yet or tires weren't there yet or whatever it is, but I'll run down the top 10 for you real quick and then let you get into some more details because I know you got some info on this one. So rounding out the top 10, you got Josh Berry, Daniel Suarez, Ryan Preece, William Byron, Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric, Bowman, Allmendinger, Larson, and Elliott. Couple things I'll point out there that I think were pretty big. First off, Trackhouse having 2 in the top 5. I thought that was pretty awesome. I thought that was big for the small and upcoming Trackhouse. Thought that was pretty good. And then obviously you got 4 Hendricks cars in there.
Gotta love it.
What are you gonna do? Those guys are just damn good. You can't. You know what sucks is like the Hendricks cars like. They always have good cars, at least 2 of them, 2 of them always have good cars, and they have 4 damn good drivers too. It's
there's not a weakness there really. No. I mean, when you got to pick Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman to be your weak link of your race team that week, I mean, you're not doing bad.
Yeah. So some big points for me to point out about this top 10 and what it's lacking. Joey Logano normally does really well in Vegas.
Yeah, he is usually huge in Vegas. Yeah. I mean, he might not do great the whole race, but he's usually finishing first or there close, in Las Vegas.
And then we had some casualties on the track. I believe Blaney went out early.
Yep.
Normally also pretty good in Vegas, but as for the Fords, I think it was just Cindric up there, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is Preece a Ford?
I don't know if he's in a Ford. If he's an RFK,
yeah. So you got Preece and Cindric up there, but yeah, none of the big name Fords were up there.
No. Well, a Ford won the race. Josh Berry's driving a Ford.
Like I said, none of the big name Fords were up there. That's right. Berry's a Ford as well. Yeah.
But let's take a minute to just appreciate what Josh Berry just did. I mean, he got the 101st win for Wood Brothers Racing, who longtime fans know this, I'm sure, but newer fans might not. Wood Brothers is the longest active race team in the sport today.
Damn.
They started in 1950. Their first race was their first Cup race was in Martinsville in 1953. They have been around the block. They've revolutionized the sport in the aspect of they changed the pit strategies way back when. They were the first team to, come to the conclusion that if you are quicker to get out of the pits, you're going to do better in the race. Because way back in the 50s and the 60s. That doesn't
seem like a revolutionary concept.
Well, way back
somebody had to be the first mover on it. I get it, but
right,
it's kind of crazy that was just like a thing back in the day.
It does, doesn't it? But like drivers used to get out of the cars in the pits.
Yeah.
Back in the 50s and 60s, no, they're the first team that was like, no, we're gonna do this as quick as we can. You're staying your ass in the car and get back out on the track.
Yep.
And the great thing about Wood Brothers is they're not, a giant race team like Penske, like Hendricks, they're a family-owned race team and have been since 5 brothers, the Wood Brothers, started this back in 1950. It was Ray, Clay, Glenn, Delano, and Leonard Wood started this race team in 1950.
That Delano kind of catches you off guard.
It does. It's kind of a different one.
Glenn, Leonard, and Delano.
The cool part is though is their children and grandchildren still own this race team.
Nice.
Cool. So it is still a family-owned operation. I'm not sure how in depth the kids and grandkids are into it to this day.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's still it's not to try to speak down on Michael Jordan, who's a billionaire that just bought into the sport because he's a huge fan. But
Which is
like this
great.
is, which is great for the sport, But
Right.
like this is,
But the history
this
side
is,
of it is cool.
yeah, this is lineage of NASCAR.
Yeah,
Um,
that is cool.
Another cool thing is it was Josh Berry's first career Cup win.
I
He
didn't
moved
know
to a
that.
new team this year. Yeah, new team this year. He first race of the year at Daytona, he wrecked out and finished 37th. Wasn't looking great. And then he ended up leading 18 laps this last weekend and came away with a victory. Finished the first two stages in eighth, which is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Ended up with the most points out of everybody for the day. And another cool thing is it's been almost 4 decades since the Wood brothers have been in the playoffs in back-to-back years. Last year, Harrison Burton got them in the playoffs with the
Nice.
win at the Coke Zero,
Yep.
and now they're back. They're going to be back in the playoffs unless somehow 17 different drivers win and Josh Berry is the worst one. He don't get in on points. Not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
unlikely.
back in '86 and '87, Kyle Petty won back-to-back years for the Wood brothers and got him into the playoffs
That's
that way.
crazy.
But this is a team that's had gaps, in getting to the playoffs. I mean, this a handful of years ago, this is where Ryan Blaney was racing. This is
Yeah.
where he kind of got his shot at the Cup Series. So I mean, they've had some good drivers come through there, but it's been a real kind of up and down scenario. I mean, like if you think about it, they've been in the sport for 100 years, pretty much.
Yeah.
Not 100 years, 75 years, whatever.
Yeah, 70 years.
And they've got 101 wins. There's some. Richard Petty's got more wins than that.
Yeah. Richard
so
Petty has more wins than probably quite a few teams, I would assume.
that's true, but
yeah, no, it's
I mean, they have stuck to their guns, being long-term partners with Ford. Their mothership cars have been the 21. That's been the staple of their organization forever, and it's just been a real classy organization. And now they're primarily a satellite team for Penske, right? So they share information with the Penske team. Probably run similar parts. They might get motors or whatnot from the Penske team. I'm not sure how that works, to be honest, but
right, yeah. Well, and it makes sense. Then Blaney moves on to Penske, and
right, yeah, that it kind of was fitting, right?
it's like they're a farm team for Penske. Is that what you're saying?
Very much, very much so.
A baseball analogy for you.
Touching on kind of another weird thing that happened this week, there was no dominant cars at Vegas. I mean,
yeah.
Primarily speaking, there's usually one driver that kind of runs away with the race. He may not win, but he leads a ton of laps. Like, I mean, we're talking 150, 200 laps, right?
Right.
This last week, the lap leader in laps led was Kyle Larson with 61. That's not many. And I mean, Larson's been one of these guys that's led almost 200 laps in Vegas.
Right.
And a lot of times it has came down to, that guy doesn't end up winning the race, whether it be a failure, a pit strategy move, something comes up and bites him. But it's been a very interesting wild race. Granted, there was a handful of cautions. It was a very fun race to watch, which we don't get to see all the time.
Sometimes I wonder if that has a lot to do with it too, like when the cautions happen, right? Because if they're fairly spaced out in between the stages too, like cars are but they're coming into the pits quite a bit. So a lot of these races kind of get reshuffled a little bit, so that maybe that guy that's running hot doesn't have the greatest pit, moves back a little bit, has to work through some traffic, so you don't get the guy who's just out there leading the whole time because it's not a clean race.
Very much so. I mean, and then you're always going to get that fluke caution that's going to really set somebody up for success and somebody up for failure, right?
Yeah, we had one of those. The 4 wide incident.
Yeah, yeah. It's four wide's never good, and it's really not good in Vegas. I mean, I know we lost Blaney in that wreck on lap 195. I'm pretty sure we lost Jones. Bubba Wallace might have got knocked out. I know he's involved. I know reckon Ricky Stenhouse was involved, but
Yeah,
I know for sure two of them couldn't continue, right? And
correct.
Blaney
Yeah.
being a favorite, that definitely changes some odds.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because he's never out of it either. As long as he's on the lead lap,
No,
he's
definitely
he's
not.
one of those guys that can get hot at any time. Get the right tweak on the last pit and start moving spots. Maybe not quite as much as we saw a few weeks ago with those option tires, but
Yeah,
that was
those
insane.
those red tires are
That
where
was
it's at.
that was
They need to give
insane.
them those every week.
Yeah, just all the time reds. Let's just give them all reds. Let them run them raw. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something earlier to me too that I thought was interesting about Vegas, and that was Christopher Bell had an interesting pit stop. You,
Oh
you
yeah.
want to
So
get
a
into
lot.
that?
Yeah. So if you weren't watching, you could have very well missed it. I'm sure it's probably been shared on by NASCAR and by it could have made Sports Center for all I know. But for there were some tire issues, right? Especially with the Toyotas.
Yeah.
Like Kyle Busch lost his. I mean,
And
after
SVG
tapping the
had like
wall.
17 flats.
Yeah.
I mean
Um,
3, but
right, but may as well have been 17.
yeah,
So,
just flat tire every time he turned. Every time they showed him, it was just like, well, SVG's coming in with a flat.
but Christopher Bell, his crew chief, who I believe is Adam Stevens, he was pulling out of his pit stop, and his crew chief or his tire changer, one of them relayed to the other, and were able to relay to him that he had a loose tire, and which would have costed him the race,
Oh yeah,
or really set him back. But
penalty
yeah,
probably when that thing comes off, and
yeah, I mean, and he had the wherewithal and were able to come up quick thinking on their feet to pull into a teammate's pit stop and get that thing tightened up.
yeah, I again fairly new NASCAR fan here, a couple years into the sport, but I would have never guessed that was even legal. Like,
Me neither. We were standing there watching. I was like, "Is that a penalty? Like,
yeah.
can you do that?"
I mean, even if it was, it's probably better to take that penalty than having the tires slip off, I guess.
Oh yeah, and lose your crew chief and for 4 weeks and get
Right.
docked 50 points and whatever, however hard NASCAR is going to whack you for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a brazen and smart move on their part. I
Yeah.
mean,
What like you talk about in-game decisions? That's spot on.
yeah, 100%. I mean, it don't get no more clever than that. And like I said, if you weren't watching, you very well could have missed it. That's how slick it was.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Just pull a few spots forward and have the tire guy rattle your wheel on a little better.
right. Well, that's the thing. Like there was communication from crew chief to crew chief, and that split second timing of hey, he's gonna pull in there, and because there was a jack man and a gunman waiting for him basically at the wall to be
Nice.
able to jack his car up real quick and snug that tire up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an excellent effort on everyone's behalf to get that thing back on the track and in one piece. So that was an extraordinary move on the 20's part and teammates involved. So
It just seems
something
like
you don't see every day.
no, and it just seems like that whole team's firing on all cylinders right now. Like
Yeah,
they're clicking. Everything's
very much
everything's
so.
going their way right now. So that's if somebody was going to do it this year, that kind of makes sense, honestly.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, when everything's falling into line, going right. I mean,
yeah, no, they've ran some damn good races this year. All right, well, wrapping up Vegas, one thing I wanted to ask you, for anybody who maybe hasn't been to Vegas before, I've been there once. You've been there multiple times, several. Do you have any tips or tricks for going to the Vegas race? Maybe a section they should book or something they got to eat in the stands, whatever it is. You got anything, tips or tricks?
for me, I will certainly die on the hill of for Vegas in particular, that upgrade to the clubhouse is well worth it.
Yes.
Um, I know you've been there and
Yes.
had that experience. And anyone who's ever paid $17 for a beer at a racetrack knows it gets expensive. The clubhouse, you get beers for free. Um, you get some AC to walk into when you're too hot because it's a desert and it can be 100 degrees in Vegas.
Yes.
Um, and on top of that, Vegas is one of the handful of tracks in NASCAR you cannot pack a cooler into. I have seen multiple people pissed off outside because they had to leave their cooler sitting
Oh yeah.
there.
I couldn't imagine.
No,
If
me
you're
neither.
used to just like rolling into Talladega with a cooler, and gotta sit there and drink all your own
Exactly.
beer, and you roll up to Vegas and they're like, "Yeah, sorry, dude, not
Yeah.
happening. You can go to the concession stand. It's gonna cost you about a month and a half worth of pay to drink all day.
Yeah.
Good luck with that."
Exactly. And then you also get some food involved for. It's not free because it's wrapped into what you're paying for. Of course, the tickets are more
Right.
expensive,
But
but I mean,
like we figured out, I think by the time I figured out how many beers I was drinking a day and the food money I was saving, and then the added comfort, like it really wasn't that crazy. Like especially
no,
if you're paying $15, $17 a beer, like
right.
homeboy's gonna drink a few of those beers,
True that. I want to say the clubhouse was about $700 for the weekend per person,
and that's all
which
three races.
yeah, it's all three: Friday,
Which
Saturday, and Sunday.
if you're gonna do it, go to all three races. It's really sweet because you got Nellis Air Force Base right there. So if you're there on Friday and Saturday, especially Saturday when we were there during qualifying for the Cup Series and then for the Xfinity race, but during practice and qualifying for the Cup Series, the fighter jets were doing their like practice flyovers, and that was just freaking awesome. That was
Oh yeah,
and we had I think the clubhouse comes with the not pit pass but
neon garage.
the neon garage. Yep. So you get to go into center field and walk around and just smell the race gas as they're firing up all those bad boys. Ugh,
Oh yeah,
I'm just in heaven, loving it. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that is I think that is definitely well worth the money. So
definitely.
if you're gonna buy a huge corn dog there, make sure you buy it from the right place that has an actual one giant corn dog, not two hot dogs on one stick. I heard a story about that one time. This is just two hot dogs.
How do you piss off a race fan? 101 right there.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up Vegas for us. Let's skip ahead to Homestead in Miami. Start looking
All
at some of
right.
the odds. So I was looking over the odds here. I got them posted on here. These were actually pulled yesterday, though, so they have changed a little bit. But it's a rough idea. Obviously, Larson won the truck race tonight, so he might even move up, but he's already the top spot. So he's already I think plus 500, plus 400, something like that. So
Currently plus 360.
okay, yeah. So he's moved up a little bit, and honestly, probably still not a bad bet.
Yeah, no.
The guy's talented on every kind of track and in every kind of car. It seems like so.
Very much so. Especially being a track that you rim ride at. I mean, that's one of his fortes. Hence, kind of where we get our name. That's where we've kind of always started saying it. Is it's records and checkers, baby. We're gonna ride that rim all the way around that track.
Look at my guy over here. We don't call
Yep.
him full send for nothing. You know
That's right.
We don't call him
Hail
Mr. Full
Mullen.
Send.
Yeah, I mean, there's some solid bets that could be placed this week, in my opinion. Um, just fruit for thought. Over the last 4 to 6 years, over the last 6 years, it has been two Toyotas, one followed by two Chevys, followed by two Toyotas. So if you want to take the chance that that's going to repeat itself, you would go with the Chevy winning, which Kyle Larson is the betting favorite, so that stands to say that it's going to follow suit. Um, I'll go ahead and give you the last 6 winners of this race. Last year was Tyler Reddick. 2023 was Christopher Bell. 2022 Kyle Larson. 2021 William Byron. 2020 Denny Hamlin, and 2019 Kyle Busch. Which any of those first 4 drivers I could really see coming out as the victor of this upcoming race. I mean, they're all off on tears.
Pretty much
and another,
but Kyle Busch there.
Yeah, I mean, Denny was one of the guys that got passed for the win on turn 4 last year by Tyler Reddick.
Yeah.
Which is kind of humorous since he pays Tyler Reddick.
Yeah. I don't think that's the only time that's happened by one of the 2311 cars either.
Definitely not, but I mean, hey, that's why he chose to pay that guy, right? He knows he's a hell of a race car driver.
That's a win-win for him if they both finish high, you know.
Yeah, and chances are he could very well make more money if Tyler Reddick wins over him winning.
Yeah, that's true. He probably does.
You know.
Yeah.
Some crazy stats about Tyler Reddick at Homestead. Over the last 5 years, with the exception of one race, which was in 2022, he crashed. But 4 out of the last 5, he has finished no worse than 4th, finishing 1 through 4 in 4 out of 5 years, including a win last year. So he's a very strong racer here, but again, he's one of those guys that likes to ride that rim up top of the track. He's also good at using the whole track and coming and sweeping down off of a big corner. So he is definitely, I don't know where he's sitting right now. I think he's plus 600. He's a solid bet for the weekend.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. For me personally, I'm usually picking 3 to 4 of these guys, and I'm putting $5 to $10 on them depending on their odds. And I usually try. We're obviously pre-practice and qualifying odds here, so what I'm trying to do is identify the guys that I think are probably going to get, a little bump during qualifying. Like last week, I think I got Chastain at plus 1,800 in Vegas. I just knew that Vegas is traditionally a pretty good race for him.
Yeah, it's solid odds.
And I think by the time after qualifying, I think he ended up at plus 1,200. So if you can identify those guys ahead of time that you think could sneak in for a good qualifying session, and get them while they're a little cheaper. Here, nothing really stood out to me crazy other than I liked Hamlin at plus 1,100 because I think he has a solid shot of being plus 800, plus 700 after qualifying if he runs well. Logano at plus 1,600. I don't know if that's changed since yesterday.
Yeah, but not much. He's sitting at about plus 1,400 right now.
Right, still same thing though. He has a good qualifying session. He's going to be plus 800, plus 700, plus 6, whatever. So those are the two that I was really looking at. Chastain at 1,600 as well. I could see him squeaking up a little bit with a good session. Trackhouse has had some pretty decent cars lately.
I mean, hey, maybe Josh Berry at plus 2,800 with some back-to-back mojo.
Yeah.
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I probably would have picked him here more than Vegas.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I don't know. It seems like once you get past Josh Berry, my second list over here, Wreckers and Checkers logo, fancy fire and flames over there. That list gets a little harder to pick anybody who might really take a jump.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple.
Yeah. Who stands out to you over on that side?
I could see Ty Gibbs finally showing up this week, maybe. Mm-hmm. He's too good of a wheelman to continue to have kind of a rougher year. Right now he's sitting at plus 7,000 odds. Now he might not be a guy that wins, but I mean, even if you picked him for a top 5 at what, plus 800, plus 900.
Yeah.
I mean, not out of the question.
Yeah. Is that what you're showing current odds right now?
Yeah, current is plus 7,000 for the win and plus 850 for top five, plus 1,800 for top three.
That's interesting. Yeah. So he has moved up a little bit because as of yesterday, it was plus 5,000, plus 14, and plus 660 maybe 650. So yeah, that's I could definitely see doing like a top three or a top five on Gibbs. I don't know if I'd take him for the win at 7,000 because
Yeah,
yeah,
he hasn't shown it yet this year.
right, he just hasn't put everything together. But you don't necessarily have to put everything together to make that top five. You know, you just got to run solid and it seems like every week there's a couple guys in the top five who are down on this list somewhere. You know,
Very much. Yeah,
Allmendinger or Stenhouse will be in there, or Busher,
Eric Jones.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kozlowski's always a good pick on mile and a half. I feel like.
Yeah, he's generally pretty solid.
Yeah, maybe not to win, like you said, but I feel like he's competitive.
Very much so.
Yeah. So Miami is a mile and a half track, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. They like to ride the rim.
Yeah, very much so. This is one of those. That's why guys like Tyler Reddick and Kyle Larson are so successful here. Is because it plays right into their style of racing.
Right.
Granted, they're great at virtually all sorts of racing. I mean, they race everything all the time. But
yeah.
Reddick now being still a younger guy, but Larson when he was driving the 42 car was one of those guys that would just get within inches of the wall on almost every track and just slingshot his way around the racetrack. So it really plays into favor for guys that like to race that way.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I don't remember Miami a whole lot as far as is this a race that usually has quite a few cautions, or is this usually one of those somebody gets out front and leads forever type of races?
I feel like it's more so one of those get up front and lead for a while. I mean, there can be quite a few lead changes, but I don't really think there's a ton of cautions.
Yeah.
But I mean, you never know. I mean,
yeah.
It seems like now with this 6th gen car that things just can tend to go wrong some weeks, and some weeks things don't go wrong at all.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we saw that last week with all the tire problems people were having too.
Very much so.
You know, there's what that was attributed to, I don't know, but yeah, we have seen these issues. Brake rotors, you know, heating up and
toe links.
Toe links, yeah. There have been some issues, so that's what keeps it interesting. I think that's why I like it, because you never know. Any given race, somebody could just be or you know that people get to racing, they're four wide. That's bound to happen, and
that's right.
And that's good for the fans as long as everybody's safe and your car isn't in there, you know.
Right. I will say though, some of the tire issues I think stem from the choice to go to the single lug nut. I mean, they didn't lose tires nearly as often when they had 5 lug nuts on there.
Yeah, because you could miss one and you'd be fine.
Right. You'd get in trouble for it.
Right.
But your tire wasn't coming off.
4 lugs.
Yeah. So I mean, there's the single lug nut leaves some things to be desired, in my opinion. Just because I mean, they're getting away. That gets it a little farther away from it being a stock car, right? I mean, granted, you're not buying these off the shelf anymore anyway, like you used to back in the 60s.
So far away from stock cars.
But I mean, to the core of being a stock car race, we're getting farther away from that. But
that's true. Well, on the bright side, weather looks good in Miami.
Shocker.
Yeah, shouldn't have any rain problems. That's good.
That's good.
Looks like it's going to be upper 70s for the
beautiful
race, so not too hot, not too cold.
Nothing screws up a Sunday like a rainstorm and where the race is at.
Oh, it's the worst.
because no one's trying to take the day off of work to watch a NASCAR race,
No.
even though sometimes we do.
Even though we can. Sometimes you can't.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you got anything else to wrap up Miami?
Not really. I mean, that pretty much touched on it all. I mean, I don't think I have anything left, except for saying I hope everyone enjoys this. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Um, Leave us some feedback. Tell us what we did well. Tell us what we need to work on. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to race.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
Records are checkers.
Records or checkers, baby. Get in touch with us one way or the other. Like, subscribe, all the good things. And we will see you next week with a recap of Miami. Hopefully, the old number one car will be up in the number one spot. I'll get to do a little gloating on live stream. And hopefully it's a fun race no matter who wins.
Very much so. I mean, either way, we should be in for a good weekend. So, as Travis said, we'll be back to touch on the recap of Homestead and the look ahead to the daunted paperclip of Martinsville.
Oof. Love it.
Love it. Short track racing, baby.
All right, guys. You stay